have Mr. Bailey and Mr. Lewin, Mr. Henderson, Mr. Miata, Mr. Milius present. We're starting in the afternoon because this morning Mr. Durst had, well, you can make a record about what happened, but a personal problem that required him to return to the jail and then return here this afternoon. Mr. DeGuerin wished to make a record. We had a discussion about what happened and the efforts the court would take. Go ahead.
Yes, Your Honor. I just want to make a record so the record is clear that Mr. Durst, at some time before he arrived at the courthouse this morning, was incontinent and had diarrhea and was unable to change or to be in court, and it was very awful foul, and so he had to be returned to the jail to be cleaned up. But it's not part of the bailiff's responsibilities to do that, and I'm concerned because it shows further deterioration of Mr. Durst's physical condition, and as the court knows, we're going to have him examined tomorrow.
All right, I don't know if that's true. I mean, he had the diarrhea, and that's unfortunate, and it's happened before, but he had to go back to jail to be cleaned up. So we did that. I was able to make some phone calls to get him cleaned up and brought back here today, so we don't lose court time. Anything else?
Well, as a layman, I know that diarrhea often causes dehydration, and that's a serious condition, particularly given Mr. Durst's myriad of other conditions.
Luckily, we don't need to depend on laymen because he's basically in a hospital bed, so I think the county has demonstrated that they can take proper care of Mr. Durst. Your Honor, I just heard Mr. DeGuerin mention that he'll be seen by a doctor tomorrow. Does that mean, is there an issue with court tomorrow?
No, not at all. It's a matter of convenience. We're letting him.
Thank you very much to the court for saving half of today, Your Honor. We very much appreciate it.
No, I think for everyone's sake and for everyone's health, the sooner we finish, the better. And we'll take whatever steps we need to do to mitigate and ameliorate, but the trial has to go forward so long as Mr. Durst is confident to do so.
You know, if the court needs it, I can't remember, I don't think it's a juror issue, but we are, if the court needs us this Thursday, we're definitely willing to be here. I know the plan was to be dark this Thursday, but if it's my memory.
No, it's next Thursday.
Next Thursday, July
22nd. The 22nd, I'm sorry. What I was going to say is yes, on the 22nd, if the court.
I won't be here, that's why it's dark.
Right.
Oh,
right.
Okay.
No,
got it.
We all have a long, well, I don't have a long weekend. I have other cases on Friday. But I am alerted that there's an appointment on August 10 for Mr. Durst.
Yes.
So we'll be dark on August 10. We're going to be, I'm going to accommodate the juror on August 2 by starting late. I am going to accommodate all of us on next Monday to start at 10, just in case the hearing takes a little bit extra time with the motion to quash and protective order by the hit the ground running people. All right?
Your Honor, I don't know if we're going to be able to what the situation will be, but I know that we are discussing some issues with respect to the testimony of Mr. Jarecki and Mr. Smerling, discussing those with Mr. Lewis, so we'll see if that ends up making that motion not need to happen. I don't know what will occur, but we're trying to address it as quickly as we can.
Great. And I received stipulations, I think 65 through 68 through from the parties. So the court accepts those stipulations.
Thank you, Your Honor.
Can we bring in the jurors? And we're resuming the reading?
Yes.
All right. We'll do a formal opening. morning, good afternoon, and good night. That's Jim Carrey in the Truman Show, right? Okay. Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome back to Department 1. All jurors and alternates are present. Mr. Durst is present with Mr. Chesnoff and Mr. DeGuerin. We have Mr. Balian, Mr. Lewin, Mr. Milius, Mr. Henderson, and Mr. Miata. And our readers have returned. Thank you. I apologize, ladies and gentlemen. Again, obviously unavoidable. I want us to be in session 9 o'clock till 12, 1:30 to 4:30 without any interruptions. I can't help it when things intervene, and I do apologize. Just so you know, there are a couple of days. We are going to be on August. We start with July 12th next Monday. We'll start a little late. Start at 10 o'clock. There's some legal matters I'm going to handle in the morning. What's that? 19th. 19th. Sorry. I'm better in the morning. Okay. 19th. Then August 2, we'll be starting a little late, at 10 o'clock to accommodate a schedule. And then August 10, we won't be here. So if you need to do something, schedule something, August 10 is a good day to schedule it. Yes.
Also, there's the July 22nd.
And July 22, I've already told you about July 22. These others are new. But July 22, we will not be in session. On the, it'll be 10 a.m. We'll be just an hour later than planned. Ordinarily it would be 9. Shoot for 9. Instead, we'll try for 10. Question? Yes.
I didn't want to ask, but I have an appointment August 9th. Should I talk to you later?
What, August 9, why don't you write me a note? Basically, I have received notes and I take those into account, but August 9th, what time are we talking about?
8 o'clock, but I can't, my eyes get dilated and I can't see for a few hours.
I see, so that would be a problem until what time? The morning, or, I don't know how long that lasts.
Depends, probably 9 or 10, 11. But I'll write you.
All right, so it may well be that of course, we'll try to accommodate, we will try to accommodate you, but you think 10 o'clock would be sufficient, or do you need later?
Usually a couple of hours, because the appointment takes a couple of hours, and then after that, I can't see that well.
And the appointment is at what?
8 o'clock.
8 o'clock, it's dilated, so dilated for 2 hours, and then you need to transport yourself, so you can't.
Maybe 11 or 12 might be safer, maybe 11ish.
I'm gonna discuss it with the lawyer, so we'll adjust our schedule to accommodate you, so if you'll, I'll talk to the lawyers about that.
Your Honor, could the court inquire, I don't know if it'll be possible at all, but since we're now gonna be dark on the 10th, could the court inquire of the juror if potentially there's a way to have our eye appointment on August 10th instead of August 9th? Since we're dark anyway, I don't know if that's a possibility.
I can try, but this appointment was made a year ago.
Right, okay, well, if they're.
I can try.
Okay, thanks for that, and so that's juror number 11.
Doctors aren't as cooperative as lawyers.
That's, yeah. But thank you, I appreciate how cooperative you actually, you are. And we haven't yet, we've received several more stipulations, which are gonna save us some time, save us some witnesses. Some facts are agreed upon, there's no reason for the witness to come to testify about them. So we are continuing it. The lawyers are not, I agree with it, but I mean, the lawyers are making really wonderful efforts outside it when we're not in session to try to narrow the evidence to questions that are actually at issue. So with that, we have the testimony of Robert Durst from the trial in Galveston. And at what point do we leave off, Mr. Miata?
Yes, we're on page 173.
So that's for my use, that's on the court's exhibit, but this is the date of This is testimony from what date? You have that handy?
Get that information in 1 second.
It's the 24th.
What page we on the PDF?
27.
So this is from October 27th, 2003, actually.
October 27, 2003, and this is cross-examination of Mr. Durst, and Ms. Pham is reading the part of Mr. Bennett, the Deputy District Attorney or Assistant District Attorney in Galveston. All right, let's resume.
September 22nd of 2001, you had Zena Simmons clean your apartment.
Yes, sir.
You had, prior to that, using her service on that day. You had never used her service before, had you?
I had never used her service before.
And you gave her a false name?
Correct.
And you didn't give her the same false name that you had been using, James Cordis. You gave her a different false name of Robert Closty.
Yes, sir.
On September 23rd, you left the Four Seasons to check directly into the San Luis, correct?
Correct.
And you checked out of there on October 1st, 2001, correct?
Correct.
You had already paid up your rent to the end of November, correct?
I am not sure what I paid through.
You purchased a money order on September 12th, 2001 for 2 months of rent, October and November, correct?
I remember $500 or something like that.
You paid your rent on September 12th, 2001, and you purchased a money order for Klaus Dillman for $500, correct?
That's what I recall. That's what I recall that saying. Yes, sir.
And then right above that there was a $300 money order also to Klaus Dillman from Dorothy Steiner on that same day, correct?
Without putting my glasses on, do those say one for 500 and one for 300?
Yes, sir.
That's 800.
Yes, sir.
Did I send those to Klaus Dillman?
That's the question. Yes, sir.
I don't recall. Did Klaus Dillman receive those money orders?
I'm showing you States Exhibit 150, which are the guaranteed federal bank records of Klaus Dillman. And it shows 2 money orders from Dorothy Steiner, one for 300 and one for 500, both purchased on September 12th, 2001.
Oh, yes. The biggest money order was $500, so that would definitely take me through November.
So under the terms of your lease, you had paid it up. All you had to give him was a letter saying, I am moving out, correct? Or Dorothy Steiner, all she would have to do was send him a letter saying, I have moved out.
That's all she would have to do?
To fulfill the terms of your lease, correct?
Sure, I guess.
I mean, you had to give notice to move out, correct?
I guess.
I mean, your family is in the real estate business. You don't know whether you had to give notice to move out or not?
Yes, you have to give notice to move out.
Would you agree that a .22 caliber pistol sounds like a firecracker?
I guess I would not. No, sir. It depends on what kind of firecracker.
It's your testimony that after the incident with, well, let me back up. This is a .22 caliber pistol, is that correct? And it is unloaded, correct?
I hope so. Yes, sir. It looks unloaded to me.
Okay, if you would, just briefly. I assume that in my hand is Morris's hand.
Okay.
Because earlier today you had me put my hand on the gun, and I would like you to demonstrate exactly how your hand was on the gun.
It says the witness complies.
Well, where's your hand right now?
Where's my hand?
Yes, sir.
It's where I believe it was when we were struggling for the gun.
Okay, and your testimony is that your hand was on the gun when it went off?
Yes, sir.
Okay, and where's the ejection port?
Right in there.
And your hand was blocking the ejection port, wasn't it?
Let me get the question again. I was holding the gun like this, and from what I remember, I held the gun until I heard it go off.
And that's over the ejection port?
Until my elbow hit the floor, and until I heard it go off, yes. The way I am holding it in my hand is over the ejection port.
okay, and your hand covering the ejection port. That .22 shell casing is not going to eject, is it?
Say it again.
That .22 shell casing is not going to eject with your hand over the ejection port.
It's going to do something.
If your hand is in the way, it's not going out the ejection port, is it?
When I move my hand, it's going to eject. It's not going to stay in there.
Well, it would get jammed in there, wouldn't it?
I don't know that it would be jammed in there. The slide would go back. I don't know what would happen, or what did happen.
And after the incident involving Morris, where he was killed, you ran upstairs and pounded on the door, screaming for assistance.
After Morris Black died, I ran upstairs, I knocked on the door, and I yelled out, "I need to call 911" several times.
And you knocked on the table earlier today, counsel knocks on the table, to give us an indication of how hard you knocked, correct?
Yes, sir.
Wouldn't you agree that you could have knocked a lot louder than you demonstrated for the jury? Couldn't you have?
I guess.
But your testimony was that you were frantic to get help for Morris, right?
Yes, sir.
But you didn't knock as hard as you could to try to wake anybody up inside, did you?
I think I knocked as hard as I could.
You also testified or demonstrated for the jury how loud you were screaming for help. I need 911. I need someone to call 911, correct?
Yes, I said I yelled out, "I need someone to call 911."
You could have yelled a lot louder than you did when you were screaming, when you were yelling, "I need someone to call 911."
In here, I'm sure I could have. I think I knocked very loudly against the door, and I think I yelled out, "I have to call 911" very loudly when I did it. Would it have been possible for me to knock and to yell more loudly? I guess I could have. Yes, sir.
Do you think you knocked loud enough to wake somebody up out of a sleep?
Say it again.
Do you think you knocked loud enough to wake somebody out of a sleep?
Yes, sir. Well, I don't know. It depends on how deeply they sleep. For instance, nobody can make a noise to knock me out of a sleep because I sleep with my good ear down on the pillow, so I can't hear anything at all.
You don't think that's loud enough to wake somebody out of a sleep?
I thought I knocked and I yelled loud enough to wake somebody out of a sleep.
But Mrs. Henriquez did not respond to your pleas for help.
I thought I heard some noise at the top of the stairs, but no, nobody, Mrs. De Enriquez, nor did her husband respond to my knocking and yelling for help.
They had a young baby upstairs at the time, didn't they?
Yes, sir.
And you didn't hear the baby start crying, did you?
No, sir.
And after being unsuccessful upstairs, you ran down the street to Charlie Burger's. Is that correct?
That's correct.
You went up to the woman that was on the phone with her son approximately 6:15 in the morning.
I don't know if it was her son. I believe it would have been, or should have, was her son. Yes, sir.
A young boy with her.
Yes, sir.
And you were still screaming in the same tone, "Someone call 911."
Not, quote, someone, but I need to call 911. Need to call 911.
And she obviously knew you were present, correct?
Yes, sir.
Did she pull her son in closer to her or the young boy closer to her?
Yes, sir.
And she looked at you?
Yes, sir.
And she ignored your pleas for help?
Yes, sir.
And then there was a man who was also in this area near the phone at 6:15 in the morning on the night of September 28th, 2001, correct?
He was leaning against his, I assume was his automobile. Yes, sir.
And how far away was he from you and the lady on the phone?
When I first saw him, he was just moving away from the automobile. He walked right up to the lady.
And how far away was the automobile from where you were?
Well, the automobile was at the curb, whatever the distance from the sidewalk. From the curb is to the payphone is whatever the distance to them. Say that again? I am sorry.
What was the distance between where the car was and where y'all were? Is it 2 or 3 feet, 5 feet, 20 feet?
I hesitate to guess how wide the sidewalk is. I really do.
About the length of a sidewalk?
The width.
A normal sidewalk.
I just don't remember.
But it was close enough for that man to hear your pleas to the woman.
Yes?
And you also made the same plea to him asking for help?
Yes, sir.
And he ignored your pleas for help?
He acted like he understood. He didn't act like he understood me.
In fact, you testified that he was intimidating to you. You thought he was coming at you in a menacing way.
I testified to that.
I believe that was your testimony.
He acted like he was protecting the woman from me.
And then you left after those 2 unsuccessful attempts for help for Morris. You ran to, I believe, you now know to be the Rabagos' house, correct?
Yes, sir.
And you know from her testimony that Mr. Rabago was awake, correct?
I don't really remember from her testimony.
I believe your testimony was you knocked on the door of the Rabagos, correct?
I opened up the storm door and knocked on the interior door. Yes, sir.
You did not yell for help that time, did you?
I didn't yell. I knocked.
Why not?
I don't know.
You would agree with me, wouldn't you, that none of those attempts, unsuccessful attempts to get him help, would have been necessary if you would have had your phone with you?
Correct. My cell phone, I assume you're talking about.
Yes, sir.
Witness nods head up and down.
You did have your cell phone with you at the apartment on September 26th.
No, I don't think so. No, sir.
Let me show you what's been admitted as State's Exhibit 167, which are the AT&T wireless records for your cell phone, starting down here at 558, all the way up to approximately 549.
What did you say?
549.
No. 549?
Yes, sir. Right here all the way down to 558. These records show that you were bouncing off at the cell tower G01B for those calls, correct?
No, wait a minute. G01B. Yes, sir.
And that was a cell tower that services 2213 Avenue K. And each one of these calls shows that it was bounced off cell tower G01B, which services the area that includes 2213 Avenue K.
Yes, they are. Are these Eastern time or Central time?
Either way, it's still off the same cell tower.
Yes. Either way, it's off the same cell tower.
And here on September 27th, the reference is called 523. It shows that call was bouncing off that same cell tower on September 27th, 2001, correct?
523?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir. Could I see the records again for September the 26th?
Yes, sir. Morris was killed on September 28th, 2001. Sometime that morning, you made a conscious choice to make it appear that Morris Black had moved out, correct?
All except him being killed. Yes, sir.
You made the conscious choice. You had the mental thought process that you need to make it look like Morris Black had moved out.
Yes, sir.
And you knew that Morris Black had been evicted, didn't you?
Well, I didn't know if he was evicted.
You had seen the letter,
I had seen the letter.
but you knew he was supposed to be leaving at some point, correct?
Well, when he had me call Klaus Dillman certainly didn't say that.
You saw the letter, correct?
Yes, sir.
And it said that, quote, "You are no longer supposed to be here. You need to find a new place to live," end quote, generally. That was the substance of the letter.
Yeah, but his lease expired long before that. Klaus Dillman hadn't taken any steps to move him out.
But you knew if he moved out, that would not be surprising to Dillman, nor would he object to it.
No, certainly wouldn't object to it.
And before you can make it look like he moved out, you had to make sure that Klaus Dillman wasn't coming looking for him, correct?
Yes, sir.
And that was another one of your mental thought process.
Yes, sir.
And that was a good thought process, wasn't it?
I guess. Yes, sir.
And when you were cleaning up his apartment, you said you came across a folder that had a check that was filled out for October's rent, correct?
Yes, sir. Cleaning up, is that what you said?
Yes, sir.
I hadn't gotten to cleaning up at that point. I was looking for the phone numbers to his sister and sister-in-law.
So you were aware enough of what was going on to know what you were doing. You were there looking for phone numbers. You weren't yet to the process of cleaning up.
That's correct.
What time did you get around to cleaning up the apartment, Morris Black's apartment, to make it look like he moved out?
I don't think I did it until Monday.
For whatever reason, you were in the apartment, you came across a check that was already filled out by Morris Black that was filled out to Klaus Dillman that said for the October rent.
Yes, sir.
In your direct testimony, you testified that you couldn't fill out the check and send it to Dillman because you couldn't copy his check, correct?
I couldn't copy his handwriting.
But you just told this jury that the check had already been filled out to Klaus Dillman for October's rent.
There was nothing on the check except October 1 and the rent, which was $300 or $310, whatever the rent was. Just the number, not the written out $300.
And once you had this information that told you how much Morris Black's rent was, didn't you?
I think I probably knew before seeing it on the check. I just don't know now.
It was different than your amount, was it not?
I don't know. Mine was $300 or $310 too. I just don't remember right now. Actually, mine included the utilities, so maybe mine was $350.
Let me show you what's been admitted as states 1 and 2. Your rent was $300 a month, correct?
Where am I looking? No, my rent is $310.
And Morris Black's on the lease was $310 a month, correct?
Yes, sir.
But you knew enough and you were aware enough that Morris Black's rent was only $300, and that's what Dillman needed to be paid for October, correct?
Yes, $310.
But you didn't make that money order for the $310. You made the money order out for only $300, correct?
Is that right? I will take your word for it.
This copy is not very good, but would you dispute that?
I will take your word for it if you tell me it's $300 and I made it out for the wrong amount.
That's exactly how much Morris had been paying all along, wasn't it? $300?
I assume he was paying $310. That's what you showed me in the lease.
But the fact that Morris actually had been paying $300 a month for a number of months, as shown in the records, that's actually what his rent payment was, correct?
I am getting awfully confused, sir. I'm trying to figure out what your point is.
The point is, you had enough snap to know exactly how much Morris's rent was, even though his lease said it was $310. It was a different amount than on his lease.
I assume the check that I saw said $300 too, if that's what he was paying.
Are you assuming or are you specifically remembering?
No, I don't specifically remember. I mean, you just showed me the records, so the records show it was clearly what I did.
So do you have a specific recollection of going and seeing this check that was filled out?
I remember going in there and looking for the addresses and seeing a rent check for October. I don't remember now what it was for. However, if it was $300 or $310 or whatever.
But you knew enough at the time. You didn't take any notes with you about how much his rent was, did you? You didn't write it down when you went to Walmart?
No.
And once you had that information, you went back to your car, correct?
Yes, sir.
You got in your car and you drove over to Walmart.
Well, as your associate pointed out to me, I must have gone back to the San Luis and changed clothes. But yes, eventually I went to Walmart.
You didn't go to the same place that you had purchased your money orders, had you?
I think I purchased some money orders in Arlen's and some in different places.
The ones on September 12th, 2001, you purchased at Arlen's, did you not?
Yes, the one you just showed me was Arlen's, but I don't know that I got all of them at Arlen's.
And your car, according to your testimony, was at the Temple on 30th Street, correct?
Correct.
And Arlen's is on 25th Street?
Correct.
So instead of going the 5 blocks down to 25th Street, you drove all the way across town to go to Walmart, correct?
Well, I think as your associate had showed me, I must have gone back to the San Luis and changed clothes.
You parked your car and went inside the store.
Yes, sir.
And you saw from the tape you didn't take any notes with you, did you?
No, I was not allowed to see the tape, so I don't know. But I am told the tape shows me buying a money order and mailing the money order, like that.
Would you dispute the tape showed that you did not have any notes with you when you went up to the bank?
No, I would not dispute that.
So you had enough mental faculties about you to remember how much you needed from the time you were at 2213 Avenue K and saw the money, the check that was partially filled out all the way to the time that you got to the first bank at Walmart. You were able to consciously remember how much you needed, correct?
How much I should write the money order for? Yes, sir.
And then after you get the money order, you go back in the car
Yes, sir.
and you fill out the money order?
If that's what the video shows. I don't remember doing this.
You were in the car for about 3 to 4 minutes, correct?
If that's what the video shows.
You don't remember what happened when you were in the car? Is that what your testimony is?
I don't remember all the experience.
But you were able to fill out the money order, put it in an envelope, stamp it, address it, and mail it?
Yes, sir.
So at this point, once that letter is written saying that Morris has moved out and the rent is paid, Morris is gone forever, isn't he?
Say that again, please.
Once you have paid his rent, written a note to Dillman saying, quote, I am moving out, end quote, Morris is gone forever, isn't he?
Yes, sir.
Had no friends that would be looking for him, would he?
Well, maybe his sister or his sister-in-law or Mr. Hanley, but I don't really know of friends of his.
Since November of 2000, you hadn't seen any friends come by looking for him, had you?
No, sir.
No family had come down here looking for him, had they?
No, sir.
He has been evicted. You knew he had an eviction letter, didn't you?
Yes, sir.
And you made it appear that he had followed through on that letter and moved out, correct?
I was going to show that he moved out. Yes, sir. Make it appear that he moved out. Yes, sir.
And this is a man that nobody would come looking for.
Yes, sir.
And if someone ever did come looking for him, I mean, he was 71 years old with a bad heart, and nobody knew where he was, you could just assume that he succumbed to his heart condition, correct?
Well, whatever.
That would be a logical assumption if Morris disappeared, right?
Who was making this assumption?
Anybody that could possibly be looking for him.
I will go along with this. I'm not going to argue about...
Your Honor, I have quite a bit more, but this would be a good place to stop. The court says we will stop for today. Now tomorrow your lunch hour will be a little bit different. Your lunch hour will begin at 11:20 and go to about 1:15. Come in tomorrow at 9 o'clock. Be it remembered that upon this 28th day of October 2003, the following proceeding occurred before the Honorable Susan Criss, Judge of the 212th District Court of Galveston County, Texas. Cross-examination by Mr. Bennett. Mr. Durst, let me back up a little bit. One correction I want to go over with you from yesterday. You remember me asking you about you telling Mr. Sistrunk that you didn't remember anything about the dismemberment. You remember me asking you about that? The court says, speak up. Is the microphone on? Go ahead. By Mr. Bennett again. Mr. Durst, did you remember me asking you yesterday when you testified to Mr. Sistrunk that you did not remember anything about the dismemberment?
I do not remember you asking me that.
Directing your attention to September 28th of 2001, after you had gone to the bathroom and looked in the mirror and saw blood on your face, what's the next thing you remember thinking or doing?
Washing my hands and my face.
And then what did you do after that?
I walked out of the bathroom into the kitchen. And I realized that the television was on, and I realized the door was open.
And at some point during this thought process, you realized that you wanted to clean out Morris Black's apartment, correct?
Later that morning, yes, sir.
And how much later that morning?
I got to Chalmers, the records show, around noon, so...
No, sir. I'm asking you what you remember.
Oh. What I remember, it was later that morning.
You don't know what time that morning?
No, sir.
Can you tell this jury whether it was before or after you went to Chalmers, from your memory?
From my memory, it was before I went to Chalmers.
And how do you remember that if you don't remember what time and what happened?
Because I remember making the decision to clean out Morris Black's... to make it appear that Morris Black had moved, and that I should go get garbage bags to put his belongings in, and a drop cloth to roll him up in.
Would that be before or after Mrs. Henriquez saw you slamming the door?
It would be after.
What other choices or things had you thought about had you not chosen to do, and you figured the best course of action was to make it appear that Morris Black had moved out?
Would you repeat that, please?
Sure. What other ideas did you have besides making it appear that Morris Black moved out?
I should go to the police? That I should run away? Those are the ones that I remember.
And you acted on two of the three ideas that you testified to today, correct?
Yes. I did not go to the police.
And at what point in the day did you have the idea to run away?
Right away, I would think. I mean, right away after I had gotten out on the seawall like that.
Well, let's talk about when did you go to the seawall?
Well, after Mrs. De Enriquez saw me slamming the door.
How long after that? Immediately after that or some time after that?
Well, shortly after that, I left the apartment.
Did you walk or take your bike?
I walked.
And how did you get to the seawall? Did you go down 22nd or 23rd Street or go down K?
I don't know.
Well, when you were walking on the seawall, what were some of the businesses you were walking past?
I walked all the way pretty much where the seawall ends on the east side.
Were you jogging or were you just kind of wandering or a brisk walk? How were you walking?
I don't know how I was walking, but I know I was talking to myself because people were looking at me. And a couple of times when I approached those stone benches they have, I could see people suddenly looking in my direction, and I kept trying to catch myself and stop talking out loud. And I assume I was waving my arms and making facial expressions.
Once you got to the end of the seawall, what did you do from there?
Well, sort of where Stewart Beach, beginning East Beach, and that's where I kept thinking, I have got to go to the police, but I can't go to the police because they're not going to believe me. Nobody is going to believe that my friend and neighbor is lying shot in the face with my pistol, and this apartment was rented by me, a wealthy person, for $300 a month, dressed up as a mute woman, and there's all this media attention about this Robert Durst person. I just knew the police would not believe me.
You previously testified you were thinking, quote, what would I do, end quote, right? What were you going to do?
I'm having difficulty with what you just said.
I think your testimony on direct that you were thinking to yourself, quote, what am I going to do, end quote, I being Robert Durst, correct?
I am just having difficulty with the context. Certainly it was me I was thinking about, had to do something.
Where did you go after you got to the end of the seawall?
Well, I don't remember, but if the records show I was at Chalmers.
I was just asking you.
Okay, I don't remember.
I'm just asking you what you specifically remember, not what you read or what you have been told. I'm asking you what you remember.
Okay.
After you left the seawall, you don't remember where you went? Is that your testimony?
Correct.
What's the next thing you do remember?
I remember walking into the apartment building,
What time was that?
and I can't state what the records say. What I remember? I don't remember what time that was.
Do you have a record that shows what time you went into the apartment building?
I believe I went to the apartment building after I went to Chalmers, but I have no record. I have no record that shows what time I walked into the apartment building.
And when you walked into the apartment building, did you have anything with you?
I believe I had the bag from Chalmers.
And how long did you stay at the apartment?
I don't know.
Did you have the bottle of Jack Daniels at this point?
No, sir.
And when you went back into the apartment from Chalmers, what were you thinking to yourself?
I was thinking to myself, Morris Black's body is not going to be lying dead in my apartment.
And once you saw Morris Black lying dead in your apartment, what did you do from there?
I took the drop cloth. I went to throw it over Morris Black's body. And I saw the key to his apartment on the string around his neck, where he kept it. And it was in this little puddle of blood.
Now, the puddle of blood around Morris Black diminished from earlier in the day when there was a large pool of blood around his head.
Well, whatever it was around his head. It hadn't diminished, I'm sure.
And when you saw this key, you had the idea that, quote, uh-oh, I need to make sure that Morris Black looks like he moved out, end quote.
No, when I saw the key, I decided I would go next door to his apartment and get the phone number for Gladys or Trudy Black, who I believe Morris had told about me, or at least this friendly neighbor, and I would explain this to them.
You had already made your decision that you needed to run, correct? You did that immediately? That was your testimony, correct?
I don't understand, quote, immediately.
Well, I believe you earlier testified that one of the ideas that you had was to run away. And I asked you when you had that idea to run away, and you said almost immediately.
Almost immediately when I got to the end of the seawall and tried to figure out what I was going to do. At the same time, I realized I had to call the police.
Well, when I asked you when you had the idea to run away, you didn't say, quote, when I got to the end of the seawall, unquote. You said almost immediately. Those are two different answers, wouldn't you agree?
What was the question? Yes, those are two different answers. But I think the question before was, what did you do on the seawall? And I talked about talking to myself. And then we got to the, quote, when did you have the idea to run away?
After you had made the decision to run away, you later made the decision to call and confess, to explain what happened to Morris Black's family, correct?
My idea to call Morris, Gladys, or Trudy Black came after my decision to run away. Yes, sir.
On the 28th, what was your idea of what to do with Morris Black's body?
I think when I was sitting out on the beach, my idea was to roll it up in a drop cloth.
And after you were going to roll it up in a drop cloth, what were you going to do with it?
I don't know that I got that far.
So at no time on the 28th of September 2001, you had any idea of what you were going to do with Morris Black's body other than to roll it up in a drop cloth?
Not that I remember.
While you were in Morris Black's apartment, you came up with the idea that you needed to make it look like he moved out, correct?
I came up with that idea when I was sitting down on the beach after walking on the seawall, talking to myself.
I'm sorry, I am confused, and please correct me when I'm wrong. I thought you had testified that you came up with the idea to make it look like Morris Black moved out when you were digging for the phone number to call Morris's family. And then if I understood your answer to the last question, you said you came up with the idea to make it look like Morris Black moved out while you were on the seawall.
When I walked down to the end of the seawall, catching myself talking to myself several times, more or less when the seawall ends, where Stewart Beach and East Beach sort of meet, I went and I sat down on the beach and tried to get myself under control and decide what I was going to do. The obvious thing being to call the police. I decided the police would not believe me, so then I decided I would have to make it look like Morris Black moved away, or I would have to run away.
You came up with the idea to make it look like Morris Black moved out before you went digging for the phone number?
Your word is, quote, digging, but yes.
Searching through his things.
Yes.
Did you start packing up his belongings on the 28th?
No, sir.
Did you shower either at Morris Black's apartment or in your apartment that day?
No, sir.
How do you know that?
Oh, you're asking me what I remember. I don't remember showering in my apartment or in Morris Black's apartment that day. Nor do I remember showering in Morris Black's apartment, ever.
So after you were in Morris Black's apartment, you came up with the idea to pay his rent, and you went to Walmart, correct?
I must have gone to the San Luis and showered and changed clothes, or at least changed clothes, as your associate pointed out to me.
Do you remember doing that?
No, sir.
Do you remember going to the Walmart?
No, sir.
And you don't remember anything about that process,
No, sir.
but you do remember having the idea that you needed to pay his rent.
Yes, sir.
And then you followed through with that idea.
Yes, sir.
And then after you paid his rent, you went back to the San Luis and stayed there for the rest of the evening.
Now can I refer to what the records show? My recollection is the answer to your question is yes.
Your recollection is yes?
Yes.
So you remember the rest of the evening after you got back to the San Luis the second time?
I don't remember the rest of the evening at the San Luis, but I don't remember leaving the San Luis.
And then the next morning, you got up. Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
And where did you go after you got up?
I went to 2213.
What time did you get up?
I don't know.
Daylight or dark when you got to 2213 Avenue K?
Daylight?
Was it daylight or dark when you got up?
I believe daylight.
Once you got to 2213 Avenue K, what did you do?
I rolled Morris Black's body up in the drop cloth.
You had already done that on the 28th, according.
I just threw the drop cloth over his body.
And so you rolled him up in the drop cloth on the 29th.
Yes, sir.
And what was the purpose of doing that?
I was gonna roll up Morris Black's body and pick it up.
Were you able to do that?
No, sir. I was able to roll it up. I was not able to pick it up.
And what did you do at that point?
When I realized I could not pick it up, I left the apartment. I left the apartment and I went to Economy Liquor.
Did you walk or ride your bike or drive over there?
I did not ride the bike. I don't remember if I drove or walked.
How did you get from the San Luis to the apartment?
I drove.
And at Economy Liquor, you purchased a fifth of Jack Daniels, correct?
That's correct.
Did you purchase anything else?
I don't think so.
And after you left Economy Liquor, where did you go?
I went back to 2213.
What time did you get back to 2213?
I don't know.
Mr. Durst, you testified that you have seen pictures of what happened to Morris Black's body.
Yes, sir.
It's your testimony to the jury that you don't remember doing any of those things to that body, to his body.
You mean the specifics that your associate was asking me yesterday?
I'm asking you if you remember anything about cutting up Morris Black. Any details at all?
It was like waking up from a dream or a nightmare with blood everywhere. I remember like I was looking down on something and I was swimming in blood. And I kept spitting up and spitting up. And I don't know what is real, and I don't know what is not real. That is what I remember.
You have seen the pictures that Galveston Police Department took in apartment number 2?
Yes.
There wasn't blood everywhere when they went in there, was it?
No.
So you cleaned up that blood, didn't you?
Yes, sir.
And you did a very good job of cleaning up blood everywhere.
They seem to have found a lot of blood.
A lot of blood. Well, you have heard the testimony that the blood that they were able to find was some specks on the wall, about 22 specks on the wall, correct?
I cleaned it up as well as I could. I did not see any blood when I was finished cleaning it. When I finished cleaning it up, I threw water everywhere with Mr. Clean and sopped it up with pieces of drop cloth.
And that was Saturday or Sunday?
That was Saturday.
You previously testified that you dumped the body out at Channelview on Sunday morning. Is that correct? In the early hours?
Yes.
And you went back to the San Luis?
Yes, sir.
And you made a phone call. Who did you call?
You're going to have to refresh my memory.
Here I am showing you States 199, item number 48, local phone call, 3:23 in the morning, 763-4500.
Yeah, I was shown this record. I understand that person whose name I can't remember is in the lawn care business. Why I would call somebody with the lawn care business, I have no idea.
Do you remember the name of that person?
A strange name, I am told, but no, I don't remember that name. And I don't remember ever knowing that name.
The record that you were shown was a record of who owns that phone number right now, or who owned that phone number back in 2001.
I don't know.
The question was, when you went and made it look like Morris had moved out of his apartment, that you got rid of all of his clothes?
You were asking me if I got rid of them?
Yes, sir.
I tried to.
And you got rid of all of his financial records.
Well, he didn't keep any financial records.
He kept a checkbook, didn't he?
He kept a checkbook?
You got rid of his checkbook, didn't you?
Yes, sir. Well, the checkbook was in the brown folder. I took the whole brown folder with me when I left Galveston.
Did you keep all the information in the brown folder?
I did until I got to New Orleans. Until I got to Mobile, Alabama. Yes, sir.
And what did you do with it once you got to Mobile, Alabama?
Shortly after I left Mobile, Alabama, I threw out that and the other things I had I didn't want. Other things.
So you threw out the things you didn't want, but you did keep the things that you did want, such as Morris Black's driver's license.
Driver's license and Medicare card I kept with either the folder, which the rental car came in with the other things. I believe I kept them, the license and the Medicare card with the folder that I got from the rental car company.
And it's your testimony you kept those things because you wanted to keep these things.
I kept those things because that's what I used to rent the car. Yes, sir.
Well, it's also what you used to rent motel rooms, correct?
No, sir.
You stated motel rooms in Mobile, Alabama as Morris Black, did you not?
I didn't use those things. I don't think I showed those things to anybody. I do believe I am sure I used the name Morris Black when I checked into the Marriott or whatever it was.
And how much was the Marriott?
I don't know. I am not sure if it was the Marriott. I am guessing it was a Marriott, whatever all their suites things are called.
Well, at this point when you were in Mobile, Alabama, and you were on the run, you had taken those 5 envelopes of cash with you, correct?
I'm not sure I took 4 or 5 or 6.
And you knew you had about $40-some-odd thousand with you when you left, didn't you?
Well, I left,
New Orleans.
well, just from, I didn't count it. I mean, if I said that at some point, that's my best guess. It could have been 50,000. It wasn't less than 40,000.
And you have a specific memory of how much money you left, did you not?
I took 4 or 5 envelopes, or 6 envelopes. Whether the envelopes were all completely full or not, I don't know. And I never counted out the hundreds to see how many I have.
Isn't it true you told your wife you left with the mid-40s, referring to mid-$40,000?
Well, that's not a bad guess.
And you didn't tell her that you were guessing. You told her how much you left with.
Did you say mid-40s?
Yes, sir.
Well, mid-40s isn't that specific. It's not like $43,386. Mid-40s is obviously a guess.
And you were using that money to fund you being on the run, correct?
Yes, sir.
And you were staying at the Marriott Residence Inn, correct?
Sometimes yes, sir.
And you knew and you remember that was $140 a night?
This is on conversation with my wife.
I'm asking you what your memory is, sir.
Right now, today,
Yes, sir.
I don't remember what they charged a night.
Would you quarrel with the fact that you had previously stated it was $140 a night?
No.
And that you also figuring you could live on $50 a day in addition to that, correct?
If this is something that I told my wife or some conversation you got from way back and you are quoting it, then that's what I said. Sitting here today, I don't remember these things. No, sir.
Well, isn't it true that you calculated how much money you had and calculated how much money and calculated how much you needed to spend every day, and you ended trying to figure out how long to stay on the run with the money you had?
You are asking me what I remember sitting here right now?
Yes, sir.
I don't remember that. No, sir.
Do you remember having those thoughts when you were on the run, that you took the time to sit down and calculate how much money you had and how long that would last?
I don't remember that.
Isn't it true that you told your wife that you knew that with $140 a night for the Marriott Residence Inn and initial living expenses of $50, you would need like $200 a day, and at some 40-some odd thousand, that would last you $200 or 200 days?
Well, if I told my wife that, then my arithmetic was very good.
But after you left Alabama, you eventually made your way up to Danbury, Connecticut, correct?
Yes, sir.
You remember telling your wife that about $50 a night would last $200 a day
No.
for 200 days.
No.
You don't remember that?
No.
Do you deny saying it?
No, I'm not going to deny it. You are reading it from someplace.
And once you were in Danbury, Connecticut, you were staying at these suites at $99 a night, correct?
I have no idea what they cost.
Did you remember telling your wife that you got to Danbury, Connecticut, and you found out the Hilton Garden Inn and the Comfort Suites, and then again at Lehigh Staybridge Suites, they are at least as good as the Marriott Residence Inn, and they are only $99 a night?
I don't know why rich people talk about money so much. But if I said that, then I said that. I don't remember right now, today, what they cost.
Do you deny saying it, though?
What? No, I don't deny saying it.
And then you also figured out what, at that price, $99 a day, plus 50 living expenses, could you stay out almost a whole year?
If I said that, I said that.
Do you remember saying it or not?
No, I don't remember any of these conversations at all.
Do you deny that those were your thought processes when you were on the run?
Do I deny that those were my thought processes while I was on the run? I don't remember thinking those things while I was on the run. I don't remember what I was thinking when I was on the run.
Is that the same I can't remember from when you were in Galveston during the cleanup and disposal of Morris Black?
That's a slightly different one.
It's fair to say, Mr. Durst, that while you were on the run, you got into counting your money, didn't you?
No. From what you are quoting my wife, or me as telling my wife, then from that conversation, I would conclude something like that. But I'm not going to say it's fair to say that that's what I was doing, no. I'm also wondering what came before and after that conversation with my wife.
Where did you, between October 18th, when you left Mobile, Alabama, and November 7th in Danbury, Connecticut, where were you?
October 18th, I am not sure. I left on October the 18th, but when I left Mobile, Alabama, was certainly the 17th or the 18th, like that. I got there on the 15th 15th, 16th, and that's about 3 weeks. Where was I? I think it only took 3 days to get up to Connecticut, so I believe that I was in Connecticut from 3 days after I left Mobile, Alabama.
Where were you staying between the time you left Mobile, Alabama, and the time you checked into the Comfort Suites in Danbury, Connecticut? In the early part of November?
I believe there's a Marriott Residence Inn in Danbury. Do you have me staying there? Because I know I stayed there.
And how did you pay for that?
Cash.
And how long did you stay at that hotel?
I was in Danbury, Connecticut for 3 and at most 4 days after I left Mobile, Alabama, until I left Danbury, Connecticut. Let me see if I can agree with November When do you have me leaving Danbury, Connecticut?
I'm asking you what your memory is, sir, between October 18th and the first part.
Right to Danbury. If I wasn't at the Marriott Residence Inn, I was in one of the other motels you mentioned, or at a motel you did not mention. But I stayed on that strip in Danbury, Connecticut the whole time.
And when did you get Emilio Vignoni's credit card?
I had Emilio Vignoni's bank statement, his bank account that we had opened in probably the mid-'80s when he started doing handyman type work for me. And I'm sorry, you had asked me when I got it. So I think I had the charge card and I had the bank statements. They were in Dallas prior to my moving out of the Dallas apartment. I took all that stuff to Galveston, and I took all that stuff to New Orleans.
So you had that credit card when you left Galveston.
Yes, sir.
The court says, okay, we are going to take a short 10-minute break, and a recess was taken. The court says, you may be seated, Mr. Durst. You can come up and have a seat again. You may proceed. By Mr. Bennett. Thank you, Your Honor. Mr. Durst, have you had an opportunity to review a transcript of a conversation that you had with your wife? Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
And it's true, is it not, that you had a discussion with her, and in that discussion, you were telling her where you were staying while you were on the run. Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
And you told her that you were staying at the residence, the Marriott Residence Inn, correct?
Yes, sir.
You were telling her it was $140 a night?
Yes, sir.
The court says, speak up, sir.
I am sorry. I was under the impression that you were going to read from the transcript.
That refreshes your memory about what you
Yes, sir.
did and what you knew back in December of 2001, correct?
Correct.
And that you were calculating that if you could live on $200 a day, you could stay out 200 days, correct?
I don't think that's what I said.
Did you say that, quote, I figured the rest of my living expenses would be no more than about $50, no more than $50. So I would need like $200 a day, and I had some 40-some odd thousand that would last me about 200 days, end quote.
That's what I said.
And when you got to Danbury, you told her you were staying at the Hilton Garden Inn, correct?
I told her what it says in the transcript.
And you told her that you were staying at the Comfort Suites?
That's what it says in the transcript.
Does that, well, after reading the transcript, does it refresh your memory as to what you told her?
Yes, but I would far prefer you to just read the transcript. And I will say that's what I said.
And you also told her that you were staying at the Lehigh Suites, the Staybridge Suites at Lehigh.
Yes, sir.
And that you were staying at those places for only $99 a day, correct?
Yes, sir.
And then you were figuring out $150 a day, you could stay out almost a year.
Did I say that?
Do you remember saying that to your wife?
No, I don't remember saying it. If it's in there, I said it.
Let me show you this transcript. If you would just read lines 1 and 2 to yourself.
Quote, and then I was...
Just to yourself.
Yes, sir.
Does that refresh your memory?
Yes, sir. Just like you said it was.
Well, I think it's a little different than what the statement actually was. Quote, Then I was figuring at 150 a day, I could last for almost a year, end quote.
Yes, sir.
And you told your wife that you got into counting your money. Is that correct?
I don't know if it says that.
Well, you told her, quote, that's how I got around to shoplifting. That's how I got into the shoplifting, and that's why I'm in jail, because I started counting my money. Excuse me. Quote, I started counting money, end quote.
I was blaming everything going wrong with my life on my wife. Yes, sir, I said that.
And that's true, you were counting money at the time.
It is what I said in the transcript is what I said. But what I was doing is something else.
You said you were doing something else?
I'm saying because of this very brief conversation that you have taken out of my telephone conversation with my wife, does not mean that you can draw that to its logical conclusion and assume that's all I was doing.
Well, did I misstate what you had said to your wife?
No, sir. I didn't say I had just been counting my money for the last 6 months.
Well, but you did say that's how you got around to shoplifting. And that's why you were in jail, because you started counting your money.
Yes, sir. That's just what I said.
And that was right after you talked about calculating how long you could last on the amount of money you had, correct?
It's all in that same conversation, yes, sir.
You testified that Morris Black shot at the eviction letter approximately 45 days Morris Black received that eviction letter approximately 45 days before you even bought the .22 caliber pistol. Is that correct?
There's a date on the eviction notice. I don't remember what it is. The .22 was brought on August the 30th, which has been stated a lot of times in this court. If that's 45 days, that's 45 days.
And your testimony is that he suddenly got angry about the letter more than approximately 2 months after he received this letter.
No.
That's when he was shooting at it?
Oh, from the first time he showed me the eviction letter, he was getting angry about the eviction letter. Angry / I don't want to use the word proud, angry. He liked to show it to people.
This is a Wyndham Note hotel resort with handwriting that was recovered from the trash of the apartment number 2. This is your handwriting, sir.
Yes, sir.
And down at the bottom, the lower left hand on the back of the envelope, it has GALV and then NEWS. Is that correct?
That is.
And that's the website for the Galveston Daily News, correct?
Yes, sir.
And you had written that down on that piece of paper because you were checking the website so when you were on the run to keep track of how this investigation was going?
Yes, sir. There's a date on there of April 28th. Is that what it is? I didn't get a chance to look at it much.
The reason you came to Galveston, I believe your testimony was that you were leaving New York because of the investigation into the disappearance of Kathy was resurrected. Correct?
I disagree with the word resurrected.
It was reopened.
Okay.
And you came here as a mute woman, correct?
Yes, sir.
And that mute woman didn't work out for you very well, did it?
It didn't work out for me. Would you be more specific, please?
Your wig got caught on fire. You went to the men's restroom. You started talking to people.
Yes.
Would you agree with me that if someone wanted to steal the identity of another person and assume that identity, Morris Black was the perfect person to do that to?
No.
Morris Black was a loner, wasn't he?
Yes, sir.
And you knew that.
Yes.
You know Morris Black was supposed to be leaving, correct? Been evicted?
I knew he had received a notice from Klaus Dillman. Yes, sir.
And he didn't have any friends that would be looking for him.
Yes, sir.
He didn't have the family that would be coming to look for him.
I always wondered if Trudy or Gladys Black would have looked for him.
They hadn't come down during the time you knew him, had they?
No, sir.
You made sure the landlord wouldn't be looking for him, didn't you?
I intended to make it appear that he had moved. Yes, sir.
You wanted to keep Morris Black's driver's license and Medicare card.
That is what I used to rent the car in both New Orleans and Mobile, Alabama. I kept it with the rental bill, if you will, rental documents.
And you became Morris Black after he was dead, chopped up, and dumped in the bay, didn't you?
No, sir.
You impersonated Morris Black, didn't you?
Just to rent those 2 cars.
And to stay in hotels?
I didn't use the license I had to stay in a motel because...
But you were Morris Black in that motel, weren't you?
Yes, sir.
Pass the witness. The court says, all right, you may proceed.
Well, we're just about done with it. I think we can finish this in about 5 minutes. Or were you just reading that at the ask for a break back then?
Yeah.
That's what I thought.
Well, that,
You threw
no, that's
me.
what it says.
That's what it says. Okay, I thought you wanted a break before you even read
Well, I
it.
did. I mean, it's
Oh, okay, all right. You're messing with me. Okay.
The court says you may be seated. Mr. Durst, come on back up. You may proceed. Bob, I'm just going to ask you a few questions. And first, I want to ask you, you mentioned that Morris Black had some tools, kept some tools in his apartment.
Yes, sir. That's his closet, and that is where he kept the tools.
Bob, you mentioned Morris Black said that he would fix the damage when he shot at the eviction notice.
He said he had spackled it.
You were asked on cross-examination to direct first Mr. Sistrunk and then Mr. Bennett in demonstrating what happened when Morris Black met his death.
Yes, sir.
The way it was demonstrated by them, is that the way it happened, or was it different?
It definitely was not the way anything happened that... Let me make it shorter. No, that was not the way it happened.
Well, then I want to try and do it again based on the instructions that you've given to us and how it happened and your description of how it happened. I'm going to be Morris, and I'm going to sit with my chair. This chair, the way has, are the legs similar to this chair, to the office chair that was in the apartment?
Yes, sir.
Then you'll have to keep your voice up.
Yes, sir.
I'm going to sit, I want to get to the point where you come into the door, Bob, and if the door would be over to where I am pointing, the right part to my right.
I think they just have to start...
Court says you need to keep your voice up, sir.
I am sorry. The oven is back where the third to the right juror is. Rather, the fourth to the right. Third to the left juror is sitting. And I will go over there and come up from the oven, which is sort of similar to the way...
Would I be sitting in about the same, similar to the same?
Move the chair back a little bit.
Okay.
Fine. The gun is sitting here. So this is the drawer. And I first get down, and I reach my hand underneath the drawer to try to see if the gun is there, and I don't feel it. I get down and look, so I'm like this, and it isn't there. And I come and I said, Morris, where's the gun? Morris, where's the gun?
Was Morris looking at you?
He was looking at me.
Then what did he do?
As soon as I started saying, where's the gun, and started to get up, he turned back that way and picked up the gun and turned...
And then he came back up?
Turned back towards me like that, and he fell over the chair leg.
Like that?
Well, sort of. The last part of it wasn't real good, but
So you had your hand on the gun?
I had my hand on the gun.
Did you have your finger in the trigger?
No, I had my hand on top of his.
And you wrestled with him? What happened to the gun?
Well, he turned towards me, so he had the gun like this, and he was pushing it like that. And then we fell. Okay, that's sort of close.
Thank you. Sit down. Was your finger ever on the trigger, Bob?
No, sir.
In hindsight, if you could change the events that led up to Morris Black meeting his death, what would you change?
I guess I would change a lot of things, but the one thing I have thought about a zillion times is that I could have taken that gun out of that apartment. If I had done that, none of this would have happened.
You've been clean and sober now for how long?
October the 30th, it will be a year and 11 months. That's day after tomorrow, Thursday.
You have had before your arrest here no sustained, no consistent psychiatric analysis or treatment. Is that right?
That's correct.
Since you've been in jail, you've had psychiatric, psychological analysis and testing, correct?
Yes, sir.
There's been a lot of evidence, a lot of discussions, at least from the prosecution standpoint, about the things that happened after Morris was dead. Almost nothing about the way he died, but what happened after he was dead. First, I have to ask you, of all the things that you did after he was dead, did anything that you did change the way he died?
What I did after Morris was shot?
Yes.
No, sir. Nothing I did after would have changed that.
As you sit here now, and in hindsight, and if you could, what would you change about what you did in the days and weeks and months following Morris's death?
Well, as soon as I realized that Morris was dead, I should have gone right to the police.
You didn't.
No, sir. I panicked and I ran away.
You've been running away all your life.
Well, not quite like this, but yes, sir.
What else would you change after Morris was dead,
Other than going to the police?
other than going to the police?
Well, it seems if I had gone to the police, nothing that I did would have happened. He wouldn't have gotten. I wouldn't have dismembered him. I wouldn't have run away. None of that would have happened. I would have gone to the police.
And I want to ask you to describe for us briefly what your memory is like of the days, just the days or two, immediately after Morris died and the dismemberment occurred. What is your memory like of that horrible time?
During that weekend, well, it's come out here, I remember certain things happening two different ways. I repeatedly would get things out of order. There's things that the records show that I did that I have no recollection of doing, but obviously I did them. It's just not clear. I don't know how else to put it.
That's the witness, Your Honor.
The court says, "All right," by Mr. Sistrunk. You came into this courtroom with a story to tell, did you not? Your version of the facts?
I came into this courtroom knowing that I would have to testify and intending to tell everyone what happened.
You came in with your version to tell us, right?
I came in prepared to tell you what happened.
You were fully prepared to tell us what happened, right?
Yes, sir.
The repetitive quote, I do not remember, end quote, the first came when we started asking you questions. Would you agree?
Well, Mr. Ramsey wasn't as repetitive as you were.
Okay, well, let me ask you this. I mean, you can't even remember the days that you saw Morris Black immediately prior to the killing, can you?
I remember certain days that I saw him, and I remember certain days that I didn't see him, but I don't remember each day.
It's hard to keep up with your version of the story, is it not, Mr. Durst?
No. My version of the story? I don't have a version of the story. And I've not told any lies while I've been in this room.
Well, you recall saying when I asked you about certain dates on the calendar that you specifically saw him on the 24th. You saw Morris Black on the 24th of September.
I certainly saw him specifically on the 24th.
Then on direct examination by Mr. DeGuerin, do you recall the question, quote, then during that next week, the 24th, the 25th, 26th, and 27th, did you have any contact with Morris Black, end quote? And your answer was no.
Yes, I think that Mr. DeGuerin was asking me if, after Morris shot the pistol in my apartment.
Any subsequent contact?
Yes.
Do you think that was just an answer for subsequent contact?
Yes, sir.
After the 24th, when exactly did Morris tell you that he speckled the wall?
On the 18th. Let me see. He shot at the eviction notice on Monday the 17th. He told me, well, it could have been the night of Monday the 17th, either the night of Monday the 17th, or the 18th, or the 19th.
You took the key, you kicked him out, and you really don't remember when he came back.
I don't remember when I let him come back in. Either it was that night or this next day. I know he was there several times between then and when I drove to Houston on the 19th.
And he helped you load up on the 18th. Wasn't that your testimony?
Well, the 18th, 19th. I think mostly the 19th. But if I said the 18th, then he helped some on the 18th too.
So maybe he came into your home while you were present. Is this what your testimony is? He spackled it while you were there?
Yes, I let him come in.
You know what spackled is?
When I think of spackle, I think of stuff that goes on dryboard.
Mr. Durst, when Mr. DeGuerin asked the question, your answer was, quote, he told me he spackled it. And when I asked the question, you were there and when he spackled it, which is it?
I let him into the apartment. He told me he spackled it. I didn't stand there and watch him spackle it. I don't even think he even used spackle.
And regarding changing anything, you wouldn't change the fact that Mrs. Henriquez saw you that morning if you could redo what you did on September 28th.
No, sir.
Nothing further, Judge. The court says you may proceed.
That's all.
The court says, thank you, sir. You may step down.
Thank you for that reading. Step down. Thank you for the reading. Appreciate it. We have some exhibits to mark, and then we can have a break. What are our exhibits?
We have a two-page exhibit stipulation sheet, Your Honor, that we like marked for identification as People's 199.
Yes?
And as far as the exhibits that are referenced in the testimony transcript, we have a flash drive containing the video animation, the recreation of the shooting by the defense. That does not have a previous exhibit number, but it's now People's 199A. We have States 150, a 331-page document, which is now, it was previously marked as People's 185D. States 152, an 8-page document, 199B. States 167, a 20-page document, People's 199C. States 199, a 17-page document, People's 199D. States 505, a 1-page photograph, 199E. States 590, a 1-page photograph, 199F. States 598, a 1-page photograph, 199G. States 601, a 1-page photograph, People's 199H. And finally, Defendants 49, a 7-page document, as People's 199I.
All right, they may be so marked. Ladies and gentlemen, we'll take our break until 3:30. Do not talk about the case. Don't converse among yourselves or with anyone else on any subject connected with the case. Do not form or express any opinion on the case. We'll see you at 3:30. Okay.
I was ready, willing, and able.
Thank you. But this is your issue, his issue.
Okay, so got it.
Thank you. So, very, very quickly, Your Honor, my understanding from
Okay.
the defense, Your Honor, is that Dr. Altshuler, due to his personal illness and just age, will not be able to testify. My concern is that we're not very far away, and I don't have any discovery. If they're planning on calling any other expert, I need to know who that expert is, I need to know what an offer of proof is, and I need to be able to have the opportunity to review whatever they're going to be testifying to.
Mr. DeGuerin, are you presenting that same evidence with a different witness?
No, not at this point. We don't know.
So my position would be...
I understand our obligations.
Well,
Okay, Mr. DeGuerin, you have the obligation to turn over discovery when you determine that you are calling a witness.
Yes, sir.
When you make that determination, you must immediately, if it's not because we're in the middle of trial, the rule of 30 days before trial obviously doesn't apply. Instead, the rule is that you must turn over any such discovery immediately upon that decision to call a witness.
I understand.
Mr. Lewin?
Obviously, I'm just concerned that, considering that they'd made the decision to call the expert, my concern is, Your Honor, that they will retain an expert late. I will get the discovery late, and then the excuse will be, well, we just retained this person. So I think the court certainly has within its authority to order them at this point. Apparently, Dr. Altshuler has been unavailable since May of 2020. I know Mr. DeGuerin only was made aware of that apparently last month. But I think, Your Honor, what we would request is that they provide discovery of whatever expert they're going to have by the end of this month, because Mr. Durst is going to be on the stand sometime next month. I need to have time.
I think it's obvious they'd have to make that decision by the end of the month. I mean, as I understood the testimony, purported testimony, was that Mr. Durst is on the spectrum. That would explain some of his behavior. It's not something that would amount to a defense. Rather, it would be something that would tend to explain anomalous behavior. So I don't think it's a critical issue, but just the same, the defense would have that obligation to turn it over. I would think end of July, you should make your decision by that date, but you understand your obligation. I've explained it precisely to you. You understand it. Let's proceed with our jury.
Thank you, Your Honor.
So with Mr. Chesnoff and Mr. DeGuerin at council table for the people, Mr. Bailey and Mr. Milius, also Mr. Henderson and Mr. Lewin are present. Mr. Bailey, and I understand you have stipulations to read to the jury?
Yes, a couple. This was actually Mr. Milius's role in the trial, much of this, so he's going to do the stipulations.
Mr. Milius?
Yes, we have stipulation number 67, may be marked as People's 200. The parties stipulate, in 2001, Maria de Enriquez lived in apartment 3 at 2213 Avenue K. She lived there for about 4 years prior to 2001. She lived there with her husband, Jose, and and baby daughter. They lived in the only upstairs apartment, which was up a set of stairs from Mr. Durst's unit. There are 2 doors that lead to her apartment unit. Her front door, which is to the left of the staircase with the number 3 on the door. There is also a second door to the right of the staircase, which leads to another part of Maria's apartment. Maria de Enriquez generally worked night shifts. Her husband worked day shifts. Her husband generally woke up a few minutes before 8 a.m. Maria de Enriquez would generally wake up before at 10 minutes to 8 a.m. to make her husband breakfast. Her husband would leave between 8 a.m. and 8:15 a.m. for work. On Friday, September 28, 2001, Maria and her husband followed this routine. At some point that morning, after her husband left, Maria heard the loud noise of opening and slamming the door. She does not recall exactly what time that morning she heard the noises. After she heard the noises, Maria opened the door of her apartment and looked down the stairwell, where she saw Mr. Durst repeatedly opening and slamming close the door to his apartment. Maria said to Mr. Durst, very loud in Spanish, to which Mr. Durst responded with a gesture that she interpreted to mean, "It's not me." Mr. Durst then went back into his apartment. Prior to hearing the door slamming, Maria did not hear any noises. She did not hear the sound of someone knocking on her front door. Maria believes that if someone was knocking on either of her doors, she would have heard it. She also did not hear anyone yelling to open the door or asking to use her phone. Maria believes that if someone had been yelling to open the door or asking to use her phone, she would have heard it. Maria has never heard the sound of gunshots coming from Mr. Durst's apartment. Party stipulate?
Stipulate.
The court has accepted that stipulation.
Thank you, Your Honor. We have a second stipulation. This is actually stipulation 66, and it has 2 exhibits. The exhibits, may they be marked as People's 201 and People's 202, and the actual stipulation as People's 203. The stipulation goes as follows. The parties stipulate to the following. In 2001, Robert Durst had a cell phone. The cell phone was a Nokia 6160. The number of the cell phone was 415-999-7612. During the entire day of September 28, 2001, the following is the only activity associated with Robert Durst's cellular phone account. At 9:15 a.m. Central Time, an incoming call went directly to voicemail without being answered. At 2:31 p.m. Central Time, an incoming call was received. During that call, the cellular phone was used in the geographic area covered by cell sector G01B. At 3:26 p.m. Central Time, an incoming call was received. During that call, the cellular phone was used in the geographic area covered by cell sector G14B. At 3:27 p.m. Central Time, an incoming call was received. During that call, the cellular phone was used in the geographic area covered by cell sector G14C. In 2001, there were no phone calls made to 911. Cellular sites are designed to cover a specific geographic area. Cellular phone records indicate what cellular sites the phone used and thus what general geographic area the phone was located in when it made or received a phone call. In September of 2001, cellular site G01 was located at 3128 Broadway Avenue J, Galveston, Texas. Cellular site G01 was divided into 3 coverage areas, G01A, G01B, and G01C. Sector G01B covered the area east of 3128 Broadway Avenue J. This included 2213 Avenue K, located about .47 miles northwest of 3128 Broadway Avenue J, and Chalmers Hardware Store located about .68 miles northwest of 3128 Broadway Avenue J. Sector G01B did not cover the San Luis Resort Hotel, 5222 Seawall Boulevard, or anything west of the hotel. The San Luis Resort Hotel is about 2.1 miles southwest of 3218 Broadway Avenue J. It is located directly across the street from the south beach of Galveston Island. In September 2001, cellular site G14 was located on the San Luis Resort Hotel. Its coverage area was divided into 3 coverage areas: G14A, G14B, and G14C. Sector G14C covered the San Luis Resort Hotel and the small area between the hotel and the beach. Sector Sector G14B covered the San Luis Resort Hotel and an area west of the hotel. Sector G14B did not cover 3128 Broadway Avenue J or Chalmers Hardware Store. The exhibits that I previously mentioned, 201 and 202, are attached, and they are showing the cell sites G01 and G114 as they existed on September of 2001.
And I think we can stipulate, Your Honor, that the water at Galveston has never been that blue.
Otherwise stipulated, counsel?
Yes.
Court accepts that stipulation. Tell me, what was the stipulation number that 203 registered?
Sorry, that was 66, and the previous one, the first one I read, was 67.
Thank you.
We have one additional stipulation. We might as well do it now. It's kind of an unrelated topic, but we'll get it out of the way. I have a stipulation. I have an exhibit. It's a one-page letter dated March 27th, 1981. May I mark this as People 204?
Yes.
And
Stipulation number?
the stipulation number is 68. May I mark the stipulation as People's 205?
Yes.
I apologize. The one-page letter marked for identification as People's Exhibit 204 was signed by defendant Robert Durst and sent to Kathleen Durst on or about March 27, 1981. The letter was obtained in 2004 by Westchester County District Attorney Investigator Eddie Murphy pursuant to the reinvestigation into the disappearance of Kathleen Durst.
You should read it, right?
What's that?
You should read it to the jury.
You want me to read it?
Yeah.
Turn the light off.
See, I'm not the only one. You made fun of me.
Huh. Kathy, in June of 1980, you told me you wanted your own space, and at your request, I moved out of the apartment at 12 East 86th Street, and where we had lived since August 1978. At that time, I hoped that whatever the problem was would soon resolve itself. I moved into an apartment my family owned in Times Square, made no effort to take my belongings or furnish my new apartment, and in all other ways tried to act as if my life with you would soon continue. That attitude is no longer realistic, and at this time a divorce seems the only possibility. Hence, number one, when we moved to 86th Street, I brought with me most of the personal belongings I had accumulated, and at this time I would like them returned. Specifically, books, records, clothes. I think there are a couple of jackets and boots in the hall closet. Artwork, none of which has monetary value. Documents, letters, etc. in my desk. Further, the following pieces of furniture. Dining table and 5 chairs, which belonged to my grandfather. Bathroom scale, which belonged to my grandfather. Blue love seat, gift of my father. Table under Tiffany lamp, gift of my father. Red chair in bedroom, gift of my father. Desk which I built prior to our marriage. The remaining furniture was either given to you by your family or we acquired during our marriage. Number 2, during the last 9 months, we spoke almost daily on the telephone. In the future, I prefer that we keep our conversations to a minimum. 3, I have asked my attorney to make every effort to resolve this matter as quickly as possible. Signed, Bob. And I think you guys already said stipulated, correct?
Right, stipulated.
Okay.
Next, Your Honor, People 206, 206A, testimony of Jeanne Clarke. It's one of our final videos. The full video is 3 hours and 8 minutes. And we need a transcript.
Is on any yelling there?
Thank you.
Thank you. Please raise your right hand. Do you solemnly state that the testimony about the given cause something before this court shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God? Please be seated. Please state and spell your first and last name.
Jeanne,
J-E-A-N-N-E.
Seems to be back, Your Honor. Maybe we should just rewind to the beginning and.
Yes, please.
Thank you. Please raise your right hand. Do you solemnly state that the testimony about the given cause something before this court shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God? Please be seated. Please state and spell your first and last name.
Jeanne Clarke, J-E-A-N-N-E-C-L-A-R-K-E.
Thank you.
Ma'am, can you please indicate how old you are for the record?
74.
And when I point to this individual right here, pointing to the defendant, do you know who that is?
Yes.
Who do you know him to be?
Robert Durst.
Can you tell me how you know him?
I met him at a dinner.
And can you describe the circumstances of
It
how,
was a group dinner.
do you remember when that was?
I would say about 10 years ago.
And was that in Los Angeles?
Yes,
At the time, do you know where Mr. Durst was living?
not at that time, no.
Do you know, in terms of when you met him, what's your understanding he was living, I'm not asking you for asking, in Los Angeles area or out of state, did you know?
This was a group dinner, there were 20 or 30 people, it was just a social event, and I don't know what I knew at that time, I may not have talked to him at all.
Do you remember what kind of social event it was to 20, 30 people?
It was a dinner, a gourmet dinner.
And what, did you and Mr. Durst have a mutual friend in common there?
No, we were both members.
Okay, that's what I'm going, what were you members of?
It was the LA Single Gourmet.
Okay, so it's kind of a dating group.
Sort of, yeah.
And when you indicated that you met him at this dinner, did the two of you speak at that time?
I went to several dinners, I don't remember if it was the first time I was at dinner.
When you first met him, and I'm asking kind of look back on him, but now with what you know, was that after his situation in Galveston or before?
It depends on what year it is. I think it was after.
Well, I mean, at the time that you knew Mr. Durst, Morris Black, I want you to assume, was killed in September of 2001. Do you believe you met him after that?
Absolutely, because it was after 2006 or 2008, because I became a widow in 2004.
Okay, so you met Mr. Durst at this event, and you met him at several others of these, or a few others of these same events?
Yes.
Oh, and if you can just wait to answer my question until I'm finished. And well, I understand you know I'm going here.
Correct. I'm trying to give you your dateline.
Like right now, the question is when you are speaking, because our court reporter is writing down what everyone says, so even just now you were speaking while I was speaking. So try to wait till the question's finished.
Just keeps doing.
Go ahead.
Thank you. Do you recall when it was that you first had a conversation with the circumstance that I'm asking for the exact date?
No, I mean, it was several people, and I don't recall when exactly it was, no.
So, forgetting about when it was, can you describe, if you can, your first interaction with him when the two of you spoke?
At the dinner table.
And at that time, did he tell you what his name was?
Yes,
Had you ever heard of it?
I had never heard of it.
And at some point in time, did you become aware that Mr. Durst was somewhat infamous?
Much later.
And years later. At that point in time, I'm talking about when you're going to these dinners, the two of you actually end up, for lack of a better term, dating.
We did go to dinner, yes.
And when you went to dinner, was this by yourselves?
Yes.
During that time, what did Mr. Durst tell you about who he was?
I think he was retired.
Did he mention that he was wealthy or anything about his family?
No.
Did he mention to you that he had been in custody in Texas?
No.
Did he mention to you that he had been involved in an incident where he killed a man?
No.
Did he mention to you that his wife had disappeared under mysterious circumstances?
No.
Did he mention to you anything about his best friend having been murdered?
No.
So you indicated that it was a while before you found out these details, is that correct?
Yes.
Eventually, you found out all the details that I just mentioned, is that right?
Yes.
And did you ever speak to Mr. Durst about any of these details?
No.
How was it you found out?
I think just the information was on the news or the internet.
And I want to ask you, when you said you went on some dinner dates, is that a fair term?
Probably dinner.
Did Did you consider it a romantic date, or did you consider it platonic?
I considered it a friendship.
Who paid?
He did.
So, in terms of going to dinner, you were going originally, you met him at basically a dating club, for lack of a better term, right?
Right.
So, man, isn't it fair that you and Mr. Durst went on dinner date? Is that fair terminology, ma'am?
No.
What would you describe it as?
Friendship.
Friendship. At any point in time, did the two of you have any physical relationship?
I object to answering that.
Well, you
I would say no. No.
How would you describe your current relationship with Mr. Durst?
Currently, I just, we stay in contact.
Is he somebody? I'm sorry.
Go ahead, I'm sorry.
No, you go ahead. I heard you.
I think I am speaking to him just several times over the last few years.
How often do the two of you speak now?
I hadn't spoken to him probably 6 months.
The nature of the relationship now is correct. He calls you, and that's the nature of the relationship.
Yes, because obviously I can't call him.
And those calls, because you collect, correct? No, you need to answer yes or no.
Yes.
And do you pay for those calls?
No, I believe he has his own system of making calls.
Have you ever refused one of his calls?
No.
So when he calls, you speak to him, is that correct?
Yes.
Is it fair to say that the limiting factor on how much you guys talk is not you, it's Mr. Durst and how often he calls you?
Yes.
Have you ever visited him in any of the facilities he's been in?
Yes, one time.
Where was this?
The Twin Towers.
And do you approximately know how long ago that was?
It was last summer.
I want to go back to when you originally went to dinner with Mr. Durst. Do you know where he was living at that time?
Beverly Hills.
Maple Street, is that right?
Yes.
You ever been to his place on Maple Street?
Yes.
How many times?
Once.
Yeah.
Once that I remember.
Have you ever stayed the night there?
No.
When you went to his address on Maple Street, was that just the two of you?
Yes.
And do you recall approximately, were there in the evening, the afternoon, what were the circumstances?
The circumstances were that I was in Palos Verdes, he was in Beverly Hills, and we were going to the opera. So that was the convenient way to go.
And did you have dinner for the
I
opera?
don't remember.
Who paid for the opera?
I did not buy the tickets. I would say Mr. Durst.
And it's your position that that would not be a date, though, is that correct?
No,
What would your position be?
it would be the same as if I went with a lady friend.
Did you ever visit Mr. Durst in Houston?
Yes.
Can you describe the circumstances of that?
Yes, he had been unable to travel and been in the hospital. So I traveled to Houston in order to visit him, as it would have been too difficult for him to travel.
When you were in Houston, where did you stay?
In his condominium.
And how long did you stay there?
2 or 3 days.
And was that in any way romantic?
No,
Who paid for that trip?
I don't remember.
Ma'am, isn't it true that you haven't paid for anything that he pays for all?
That's not true.
What have you paid for in your relationship?
Probably airline tickets to Houston and other things.
Oh, meaning you only went to Houston once, is that right?
Yes.
So you're saying you believe you might have paid for the airline tickets, or you saying?
Yeah, I think, I don't remember, I might have.
Have you and Mr. Durst ever talked about him moving close to where you live in the South Bay?
No,
You've never talked about that?
no,
Have you, Mr. Durst indicated that he's interested in buying a house in Palos Verdes Estates in the area where you live, and has he asked you if he would be recognized there?
I don't remember that, no.
Is your position that you didn't have that discussion, or simply you don't remember?
I would say I don't remember that, and I don't have any knowledge of him moving there.
Have you sent letters to Mr. Durst in custody?
One,
Have you ever expressed concern about whether or not the letters you sent are being read by authorities?
no, there was nothing private.
Have you sent him packages in custody?
No,
Clip JC005, this is a call from May 20th, 2015 at 8:23 p.m.
This is,
What page?
Yeah, they are, they have those. But anyway,
And I want to thank you a lot for the stuff you sent me.
okay,
They read it all in, which I was pleasantly surprised about. They don't like to write in big piles of...
I was thinking about that, if they considered that a package and would reject it or whatever, but it didn't come back.
They gave it, they opened it, but they gave it to me.
Of course, they didn't open it.
You know, the way people send things is by the United States Postal Service, USPS, Express Mail. That gets opened and it gets here in 1 or 2 days.
So that's how I sent it,
I know.
because I didn't think they would accept taxes.
Well, they try to give FedEx and UPS more difficult times. See,
I would think so.
maybe because, you know, it's all the government or something. They want to...
Well, they don't want too many different people shipping things in. They usually don't take taxes.
Ma'am, you remember now sending it?
yes, it was newspaper articles that I had clipped out and I sent to him. He was interested in what was in the newspaper.
He was interested in articles about himself, correct?
Yes.
And in fact, in your conversations, is it fair to say that Mr. Durst always wants to see what has been written about him? Is that correct?
No, I don't remember it other than that conversation.
Well, I'm not asking you how many times you said this, I'm saying to the best of your memory, when you speak to him, Mr. Durst frequently inquires you about articles involving him.
No,
Now, as you sit here today, do you consider yourself to be an unbiased witness?
yes,
So you don't believe that you're on any one side or another in this, is that right?
no,
Meaning it's correct? That's no negative. Correct, you don't consider yourself to be on one side or the other?
correct.
Have you spoken to the defense in this case?
Yes,
Have you spoken to me?
no.
Did I try to speak to you, ma'am?
DA did try to speak to me, but I don't know if it was you.
Ma'am, you're aware that I came to your house, left you my business card, correct?
Absolutely not. I do not believe that.
Ma'am,
I've never seen your card at my house. I had one phone call once.
and ma'am, do you recall being very direct in saying you weren't going to speak to us?
I did on your phone call.
And ma'am, if you're a neutral, unbiased witness, what would be your reason for not speaking to us?
Because I do not believe you had any business contacting me.
But you felt that Mr. Durst's lawyers did it.
Yes,
And ma'am, isn't that because you're Mr. Durst's friend and you want to assist him any way you can?
I would say I am his friend, but I did not believe I had any responsibility to talk to you.
Ma'am, how often have you spoken to Mr. Durst since he's been in custody? And I'm talking about since 2015, if you were to estimate.
Maybe 10, 15 times.
Would it surprise you if it was more than 2 dozen?
No,
Is there a reason that you gave that low estimate?
yes, because many times I'm not home when I receive a phone call.
And ma'am, if we talk about the amount of times Mr. Durst has attempted to get a hold of you and left a message on a machine where you were not there to pick it up, would you agree, ma'am, that's going to be dozens of times during that period?
Yes,
I want to go back for a moment. When you found out that Mr. Durst's wife vanished, are you telling me you never asked him anything about that?
I did not.
Ma'am, did you think that that was something that, why not? Why didn't you ask him?
Because I didn't want the information.
So, ma'am, what you're telling me is, in essence, you didn't want to know what had happened to Mr. Durst's wife, and that's why you didn't ask. Is that correct? Correct, ma'am?
No,
Tell me, explain it then. You just said, I didn't want to know. What does that mean?
I'm sorry, I misspoke myself. I did not ask him.
And I'm asking you, ma'am, why? Back up. You meet Mr. Durst at a dating club. You go on several dinners, you stay over at his house. Ma'am, do you think it was relevant in terms of what you would want to know as to what the circumstances were involving his missing wife? Ma'am?
Yes,
I'm asking you here, you're going out on, you're saying not dates, but you're staying over his house, you're flying to Houston, staying there. By the time you had done some of these activities, you knew about Mr. Durst's history, is that correct?
yes,
So, ma'am, you're saying, by the way, have you ever gone out with a guy whose wife disappeared and never came back? That you're aware of?
not that I'm aware of.
You ever gone out with a guy who shot his neighbor, dismembered him?
No,
You ever gone out with a guy whose best friend was shot in the head?
I think you're assuming things.
Oh, no, ma'am, I can show you the picture. She was shot in the head.
I am saying you have no right to ask me what you're asking me.
Well, see, ma'am, I can ask questions unless and until they're objected to. So, ma'am, what I'm asking you is, would you agree, ma'am? Your Honor, at this point, I would like to treat her as a hostile witness at first. Right. Thank you. Ma'am, you're going out with a man who you know his wife is missing, he shot and dismembered another guy, and his best friend was mysteriously shot in the head, and he's a suspect. You know this information, correct? You become aware of it. Correct?
No,
You never became aware of that information.
I think I was aware that there was things on the internet or the TV, but I never believed them.
Ma'am, that's not what I'm asking. I'm asking, were you aware of what? Now, you didn't believe that he had shot his neighbor and dismembered him?
No,
Ma'am, you're aware that Mr. Durst, his defense in his case, his testimony was that he admitted that he dismembered the man. Are you aware of that, ma'am?
no,
So the first time, ma'am, that you're hearing that Mr. Durst had admitted to dismembering the guy across the hall is today in court?
no,
Then when did you become aware of that information?
I don't know.
Ma'am, isn't it true you were aware of that information well before you, for instance, flew to Houston to see Mr. Durst?
I don't remember the circumstances as and with the dates they occurred.
So, ma'am, what I'm asking you is, there was a point in time where you were aware of the following three things. Mr. Durst's first wife disappeared, his best friend was shot in the back of the head, and he shot his neighbor and dismembered him in Texas. There was a point in time when you were aware of all three of these events, correct?
No,
There was no point in time?
there was no proof. There could have been speculation on the newspaper, on the internet. I don't believe everything I read on the internet.
Now, did you and Mr. Durst ever talk about the James?
No, but he made me aware that it would be on TV.
And you saw the James, correct?
Eventually, yeah.
And now, was it a conscious decision on your part to never ask Mr. Durst anything about his missing wife, his dead best friend, and his,
No.
it was not that, it just never came up?
Exactly.
Ma'am, as you sit here, if you're going to be spending time with somebody, do you think that it would be important to know whether or not, just as an example, that they shot the neighbor and cut up the body? Would that be something relevant for you?
I don't think I understand your question.
I'm sorry?
I don't understand your question.
Did Mr. Durst, you saw the James, correct?
I did not when it came out. I was out of the country.
Now, you've seen the James, correct?
Yes.
And you've seen the James and continue to have conversations with Mr. Durst, correct?
Yes.
Now, did you ever discuss with him, say to him, in essence, oh my God, Bob, that stuff on the James, is any of that true? Did you ever ask him?
No,
And can you explain why?
because it's Hollywood.
It's Hollywood. Have you and Mr. Durst ever talked on the phone about the James?
I probably,
Do you know what he said about it?
no,
Do you recall him telling you that he, quote, messed up cooperating with the filmmakers on the case?
no,
Do you recall him telling you, ma'am, that, quote, he might have a problem after the 4th episode, but knew he had a problem after the 5th episode? Do you recall that?
no, I was out of the country. I was in Hong Kong.
JC001 5815 17 recall.
119, 119A?
Yes.
Or what? Is that right?
Yes.
Did you watch the HBO thing?
No, I recorded it.
So you saw it all,
Yeah, I saw part of it before I left, and then I recorded it. Before it ended, I did not, I left between chapter 5 and 6.
no, so I missed chapter 6, I saw 1 through 5, and I started realizing I had made a mistake. When I got to chapter 4, and should never have spoken to that schmuck.
That's why that producer, he was a real asshole. Okay, so at what point did you think you were in trouble?
I didn't ever think I was in trouble with every kid. I didn't, for a second.
Yeah, I didn't think so because I just talked to you before I left.
First
And,
and third, I did not like. I didn't think they were close to be a problem.
right.
Fourth, I started thinking I might have a problem. Fifth, I started, I definitely had a problem.
Now, does that refresh your recollection a little better?
No, but I think the time span is off. That was much after the James, wasn't it?
This is a call, ma'am, from February 2015. So my question is, during this call, you indicated May 2015. And during that call, you indicated that you had seen, part of it, right? But you indicated that you had not seen all of it, is that right?
That's right.
But ma'am, during this conversation, Mr. Durst was explaining to you that he had a problem. You had a problem, thought he had a problem after the fourth episode, you had a problem after the fifth episode, is that correct? You recall me saying that?
I don't recall that exactly.
Ma'am, has Mr. Durst ever told you that anything that he said to Jeanne was untrue?
I don't know.
Has Mr. Durst ever told you, after you made him aware that you had seen Jeanne, did Mr. Durst ever say to you, hey, listen, oh my gosh, Jeanne, I don't want you to think I killed my wife. I didn't do it. Did he ever tell you that?
No, I was out of the country.
Ma'am,
Yes.
did he ever say that to you?
I do not remember anything like that.
Well, ma'am, so my question isn't true. He never told you, never said that I didn't kill my wife, correct? Never said that to you.
I never asked him.
So, ma'am, let me see if you
The
understand.
answer
Let me
is
see.
no.
Huh?
The answer is no.
So you agree he never told you that he did not kill his wife, correct?
He did not.
And ma'am, he never told you he did not shoot his best friend Susan Berman in the back of the head, correct? Never told you that.
Would you repeat that?
Now, you watched the James, and you've had conversations with Mr. Durst after you've watched the entire James, correct?
Correct.
And you've let him know that you have watched the James, correct?
Correct.
Ma'am, wouldn't it seem that it would come up where either you would say to him, hey Bob, wow, they're saying you murdered 3 people. Or to ask him, hey Bob, what gives with these 3 people you allegedly murdered? Or for Mr. Durst to say, hey Jeanne, I didn't do any of those things they're saying I did. Did any of those conversations ever come up?
No.
Did that strike you as strange?
No.
So when you told him that you watched the Jinx, you would agree his response was in no way, that's untrue, they're lying, they made it up, correct? Never said that.
I don't know.
Now, you would agree that Mr. Durst's comments when you had this conversation on May 8, 2015 about the Jinx was not to deny the content, but for him to tell you when he realized he had a problem. Do you agree that's what happened?
No.
No?
No.
How would you characterize what you just heard?
I don't remember.
Let me play it again for you now. Let me play the same.
You watched the HBO thing?
No, I recorded it.
So you saw the whole thing?
Yeah, I saw part of it before I left, but then I recorded it. Before it ended, I did not, I left between chapter 5 and 6.
Oh, so I missed chapter 6. So 1 through 5. You started Beverly trying to make an escape. Chapter 4, that you never spoke to that.
That's right, that producer, he was a real asshole.
Absolutely.
Okay, so at what point did you think you were in trouble?
I never think I was in trouble with whatever the case. I didn't get the first second.
Yeah, I didn't think so because I just talked to you before I left.
First,
And
where I did my life, I didn't think they were causing me a problem.
right.
Fourth, I started thinking I might have a problem. Fifth, I started again.
Ma'am, does that refresh your memory?
I believe that conversation was after he was arrested.
It was, ma'am.
Okay, so I'm not remembering facts in order.
No, ma'am, my question that I'm asking you though is, during this conversation, you were telling him you've seen 5 of the 6 parts of James, correct?
Correct.
And you would agree, ma'am, that through part 5, you had already seen James had depicted Mr. Durst as having murdered three people. Remember that?
No.
The Jinx did not depict him as having murdered three people.
Who's the Jinx?
Ma'am, you've seen 5 or 6 episodes of the Jinx being series.
Who is the Jinx? You're confusing me. You're putting words in my mouth.
Ma'am, so listen to me. You watched the program, The Jinx. So the program, the miniseries, the 5 or 6 episodes you've seen, by the end of the 5 episodes you say you watched as of that day, in May, you would agree that Mr. Durst has been depicted as having murdered 3 different people.
I disagree. No.
I'm sorry?
I don't know what you're asking. You're confusing me. I'm sorry. Yeah.
Ma'am,
I'll be violent.
well, listen, I'll do it again, Honor. No problem, I'll take plenty of time to explain it for you. So listen to my question. Yeah. Ma'am, you watched 5 of the 6 episodes of The Jinx, is that correct?
Yes.
And ma'am, do you agree that in those 5 episodes that you watched as of this phone call, that show had depicted Bob Durst, your friend, as having murdered 3 people?
Is that what it depicted?
I guess so. Yeah.
Okay, ma'am, so if that's what it depicted, then during this conversation, you in fact asked, at what point did you think you were in trouble? What did you mean by that?
I don't remember because I don't remember answering, having that conversation.
Well, ma'am, during this conversation, you would agree that Mr. Durst at no point denied any of the accusations from the Jinx. Is that correct?
No.
It's incorrect?
I don't know. I don't remember.
Well, ma'am, are you telling me that not only did you never ask Mr. Durst about these 3 incidents, disappearance of his wife, murder of Susan Berman, death of dismemberment of Morris Black, but now you can't remember if Mr. Durst ever even denied them to you?
I can't remember.
Ma'am, you would agree in this section that I played to you that Mr. Durst, after you asked him at what point you think you were in trouble, he points to the episodes and says, I thought I had a problem after 4. I knew I had a problem after the 5th episode. You recall now that I've listened to that, that's what the conversation was?
Now that you, yes, now I recall, I did not before.
And ma'am, when he said that, what did you take that to mean?
I did not interpret it at all.
So, you just watched 5 episodes of depicting a man who's murdered 3 people. He's now talking to you, and instead of denying it, he's now telling you, I knew I had a problem after the 4th episode. I thought I had a problem after the 4th, knew I had a problem after the 5th, and you're telling me that you didn't in any way attempt to think about what that meant? First of all,
No.
what did you mean when you said, at what point do you think you were in trouble? What did you mean?
I don't remember saying that except when you play it, so I don't know what I thought then.
So when you play it now, when you listen to it, you have no clue about
I
it.
have no opinion.
Ma'am, did you and Mr. Durst talk about, on your May 8, 2017 call, the fact that Mr. Durst had caused a problem for himself? Remember that?
I don't remember it. I don't remember any, I do not remember phone calls or the contents of them. Anybody.
JC002, this is going to be from the May 8, 2017 call at 5:21 p.m.
So this is 120 and 128?
Yes.
Thank you.
Anyway, read those newspaper articles you print out, and then you'll see the rest of the mess. And you'll see what a big problem that was.
Well, I know you caused a big problem, yes, but hopefully, well, I don't think you should write to news reporters. You should listen to your journal. Because if you write to them, then there'll be more publicity. Yes.
Never ever going to do
Yeah, it just, you know, they all want, the news reporters all want attention. So they're looking for anything.
Ma'am, isn't it true that you were discussing at this point in time, Mr. Durst having sent a letter to the newspaper?
Yes.
And would you agree that during this conversation, Mr. Durst is, again, not telling you, I did not say the things I said to James? He's not denying having said those things, is that right?
I don't understand how this connects.
Now, to the best of your memory, again, maybe I'll just ask one thing before. Obviously, I'm going to go to the next one. Do you know if Mr. Durst...
All right, let's,
was in custody?
seems that the conversation is moving to a different topic, so that would be a good time for us to break. Ladies and gentlemen, we'll break until tomorrow at 9 o'clock. Do not converse among yourselves or with anyone else on any subject connected with this case. Do not form or express any opinion on the case. Have a nice evening. See you tomorrow.